Okay, we're going to talk about what's going on in the commodity title area. This is one of those things where whatever you did, you are stuck with it. You can't change it. Most of you would like to change it if you had the chance to do that. One of the things I'm worried about this is a lot of this wheat was put under loan. What happens when that wheat comes out from loan? If it goes on the market, we could drive prices back down again. We got into a situation where we were getting LDP payments. That's pretty much gone now. Well, it is gone. And that went away once they came out with that report that there was like 1 million less acres of wheat planted in the state of Kansas. And that took away the LDP payments. If we should get back into them, on this slide here, bullet point number 4, you need to be aware of, you can avoid some of the payment limit if you would take out a loan and repay it with certificates. I don't know how many of the country paid attention to this, but the director of FSA actually sent a letter to all of his county offices telling his employees to make farmers aware that they had this option. This is not the same as paying off the loan. You take out a loan and pay it with cash, that's not the same thing. You have to pay it off with certificates, and there's a bunch of hoops you have to jump through it. The advantage is those payments do not count against the limit. So when is that going to come into play? Next fall. We could see some very big payments next fall for ARC and PLC especially. And if those payments are really large, even some relatively small farms would be over the payment limit. And if you've already used up part of your payment limit collecting LDP payments, that's going to leave less room to collect that fall payment. So that's why you would want to do that. If you've already done it, there's nothing you can do about it now. In other words, you took the LDP payment. That does count against your limit, and it'll show up next fall when they start making out those payments. So you could run into a payment issue. Why is this in here, which essentially means you don't have a payment limit? It's not in the Farm Bill. It got put in the budget bill. It got put in there by Cotton. Cotton for years has been using LDPs, and they've been able to go around payment limits by using this certificate program, and it was put into the tax code. So it's there. It just wasn't part of the Farm Bill. The loan rates, they're set at county levels. You may wonder where they get this marketing year average price that triggers the payments. It's the same price for everywhere, the marketing year average price. The ARC payments are triggered by that marketing year average price and the county yields. The marketing year average price, what it is a survey of the really large elevators. And they have to, by law, report 2 numbers. They have to report how many bushels of wheat or whichever grain we're talking about they purchased during the month and what was the total dollars they paid for that production. And then sum those across all the elevators across the U.S. They divide the 2 numbers, and that's how they come up with the number. They survey the smaller elevators. The big ones have to report every month. Now, I get a lot of questions on this because that marketing year average price is considerably higher than it is out here locally, or at least it was. Right now, that marketing year average price for wheat is around $3.80, and I think that's getting pretty close to final. Speaking of that, we go to the numbers. This is the estimate for corn, where it stands right now. You'll notice these numbers here in black. Those numbers are final. They've been published by USDA. Over here is the estimated weight. This is the percentage of the crop that's sold each month. They are estimates, but it's based on the assumption that farmers' marketing won't change much from year to year. And that's basically true. You just don't make big shifts in how you sell the crop. Never have. So those weights, while they are estimates, I don't expect them to change very much. The one exception I saw was these last 2 numbers got a little high 2 years ago on grain sorghum. Anybody remember what was going on with grain sorghum 2 years ago? China. And we had corn. We had grain sorghum $1 over corn, which is unheard of. And so people were cleaning out the grain bins at that point. And so you had a little higher weight here at the end of the year. But absent something like that, these don't move around a lot. Notice also that the big months that really carry the day as far as the price is going to be is October and November. You skip December. It's a sizable weight, but it's not one of the bigger ones. Why do you skip December? Because you don't want to pay taxes. That is written into the Constitution of being a farmer. I don't want to pay any taxes. So to live up to that, you avoid it by taking it over to January and you push it into the next year. As a result, you see the big weight here. Well, when we get that number, it'll come out at the end of January. So we should be getting that, well, be the end of February, be the January price, but it's not posted until 30 days later. So the next price that comes out will be this one, even though we're past January. It'll come out at the end of the month, and at this point, we will update that number. And when we do with this weight, most of the price of corn will be in place, and you can take a lot of confidence in the estimate down here at 340. So if you got a 370 strike price in PLC and you got a 340 price, that makes it kind of easy to see. The difference there, if I've done the math correctly, is 30 cents. So you get a 30 cents LDP payment. On the ARC payment, it will depend on the county yield. Done the same thing for sorghum and soybeans, bringing us down to wheat. And at this point, these are the wheat numbers, and we update these each month. And at this point, I'm at 380 on the wheat. You'll notice that the big sale months, the weights that are carried the largest, are the first 3 months of the marketing year, June, July, and August. At the end of August, half of the price is determined. So what was wheat doing back there in the fall? Well, it was going down virtually every day. But it wasn't having the impact that you might think, because a lot of it got sold right around harvest. Again, it's a national-wide price. If you've been up in North Dakota, their prices are much higher than they are down here, primarily because they've got higher protein up there on that wheat crop, and they actually buy the wheat crop by protein. Do you know what was on your individual wheat as far as protein is concerned? Does it say that on your settlement sheet? No, not in Kansas. It's just all bulk. Nonetheless, that's why this may not look reasonable to you, but you got to remember it's a national average price. Other parts of the country are well over $4 in that price, and as a result, it brings up the average higher than what you thought it would be. I did adjust for the basis in the estimates I'm coming up. I used the Chicago contract to estimate with rather than Kansas City, because again, it's a national wheat number, not an individual number. And once you get about 3 prices published in the case of wheat, you're close to having the number. Okay, this is everybody knows now that this national average price is higher than what you get locally. Is that always true? Well, no, it's not. If you look back here, this is the cash price in Colby versus the national average price by month. In that particular month in Colby, the cash price was $1.20 higher than the national number. $1.20 higher. Now, why doesn't anybody remember that? Why didn't anybody remember that? Remember what was going on back then? Wheat going for $8, $9 a bushel? Yeah, it was. And when it was going for $8 or $9 a bushel, the government program had no impact. I mean, they still calculate the number, but nobody uses it for anything. So nobody paid any attention to it. Now we're in the opposite situation where we've got the cash price in Colby is about, 60 cents under the national average price, at least the last time I updated this chart. So yes, your cash price for the most part is lower than this national average price, but that's not always the case. That is not always the case. Anyway, so you're probably thinking I picked the wrong program if you went into ARC on your wheat. If you took ARC on your soybeans, there's been no PLC payments under soybeans, and I don't expect any at this point. Corn is a mixed bag. Wheat now, you would have been better off being in PLC, because we're looking at some really big PLC payments. What all that comes down to is, and I actually went back and looked at my PowerPoint slides, and what I said was if wheat drops below $4, then PLC is going to look pretty good. Now, I did not give a price forecast. I always refuse to give a price forecast. Now, I'll tell you after the fact, did I think price would fall below $4? No, I really did not think that was going to happen. But it did. And as a result, the PLC payments, why did it drop that low? Well, we had a record Kansas crop. First time it's ever exceeded 50 bushels on the average, 50 bushel an acre. I think it was 56. With that kind of number, yeah, we ended up with prices below $4. And that shifted it over to PLC. So, Eric, if you'd give me the right forecast, I would have got it right. You got the right forecast. Well, you always think it's going in the tank. You are the original bear. You don't think prices ever go up. Anyway, I got a brother in the cattle business. He tells me the opposite. Grain price is always too high. Anyway, it's correct that the high county revenue eliminates the ARC payment, but that is the way the ARC was designed. So if you got really high yields, it's a combination of problem. You have a price that's low, and then you got a high yield. Well, that pretty well eliminates your payment in Kansas, as you'll see in a minute when we show you the map. Then I also get, why did my neighbor across the road get a payment from ARC? And I'm talking about the previous 2 years. And the final question is, where in the hell did USDA come up with that county yield? Okay. The way they get the county yield is through the NASS survey. They send out this NASS survey and they ask you, how many acres of wheat did you plant and how much production you get? And you take that NASS survey, right, and you take it directly from the mailbox into your home office, you break out your records, and you calculate that NASS yield right down to the last tenth of a bushel, right, and mail it back in promptly. Yeah, some liars in this room. Yeah, you throw it in the trash. I know what you do with it. Worse than that, you're probably going, now wait a minute, if the yield is lower, I might get a little more money out of the government. So, you know, I really raised 50 bushel of wheat, but I'm going to tell them I raised 35. Heck, they don't know any difference. So you turn in 35. Now, if you turn in 10, they'll probably throw it out as an outlier. So you got to be reasonable. Now, I really wish you wouldn't turn in bad numbers, but I'm not surprised you don't. Is there any place to find county yields where you go to jail if you don't report the right number? Any government program that does that? Crop insurance, yeah, you betcha. In fact, in North Carolina, nobody mentioned that Michael graduated from North Carolina State. I just thought of that. But down in North Carolina, those people are a little flaky, right? Shaky. Yeah, true story. This guy had tomato plants. He paid his employee to beat him down with a broom, and then they went to town, bought some cocktail ice, threw it on the tomato plants, and filed a claim. Now, it turns out that employees are not very loyal when threatened with jail time, and so they flipped. And for that little exercise, he got 72 months in the big house. I believe that's 6 years, sharing a small room with Big Bird. Ladies, listen up. I mean, she says, hey, I didn't know what the old man was doing. I didn't know he was defrauding the government. I didn't know he was filing a false claim. All I know is he said, sign here, initial here, and sign here. And that's what I did. The government doesn't care. You're responsible too. And she got 48 months in the big house, sharing a small room with Big Bertha. So even if you don't know what he's doing, don't sign anything if you've got an inclination that he may not be filling out the right numbers. The point is, when you get in the western third of two-thirds of Kansas particularly, virtually 100% of the wheat crop's insured. Very little of it is not. So essentially, that's the population. It's not a sample like NASS's taking. Why don't they use those numbers? Well, you got to protect your turf. Same reason we don't cooperate with KU. Besides, they suck. No. Hey, how about that ball game last night? Anybody watch the ball game? Anyway, a large number of counties don't have NASS yield because you don't turn in the survey. You don't turn in the yes. What? I dropped my mic. Does that take off the recording? Well, Yeah, you got to delete the KU stuff because governor might read it. Anyway, all right. Simply don't turn in the surveys. You don't get surveys. And then there's problems with the data too. You get into problems with people that graze out wheat. Some of the corn gets cut for silage. It doesn't go to harvest and that sort of thing. So lots of things going on. And there's no penalty for not filling out the survey. There's no penalty for not filling it out correctly. With crop insurance, criminal liability attaches when you sign that acreage and production report. And we publish 4 different yields from USDA. You think you could get them all in a room and everybody agree on one county yield and all the farm programs work with that one yield. But no, you don't do that. On our website, created by Robin, she likes to tell everybody they're my numbers, particularly when somebody calls up and complains that they're wrong. She tells them right away. But she did create the maps here. And when you bring your cursor over your county, over here, this tells you what all these numbers are. You can find this on Ag Manager. You simply log on to it and you can see what we're forecasting for payments. Now, why didn't I get paid, or why did I get paid? Looking at how the numbers work is you'll notice that I've got a low yield here, a high yield here. They get dropped out, and you average the remaining 3 years of yields. And you notice they're not too bad here. They're at 44 bushels, averaging these 3 years together. Now, notice that one of the biggest yields you got in 2009, that's a bad place for it to be. It'd be better off if it was over here or over here, because it gets dropped out right away. You're going to lose that yield. And when you do, look what happened to my 5-year Olympic average yield. It dropped down to 40. And we go to the next one, and again, we dropped it down to 38. So you see, it's not just what's going on with price. Now, it's starting to come back up a little bit in 17. And after that, do I care? Nope, because 17 is going to set your 18 payment. Anyway, so, and if we look on the map, you'll see here's the western 2/3 of Kansas. This is the estimates for 16. These are the payments next fall. And I got bad news for you. For the most part, everything west of Wichita is not getting paid anything on wheat. Payment, if you're in ARC, is 0. Only Eric gets to drive a new pickup truck. Everybody else is going to be talking to their bankers about renewal. But that's not renewal, is it? That's, what do you call that? Rollover, right? Going to roll a note over and refinance and spread it out? Yeah, just keep rolling it over. Well, until you run out of equity, I guess you can do that. Anyway, most of the payments that you see here are for the eastern part of Kansas. So not a good news there. What we've got in here, and we hit, this is based on NASS yields where they're available. Now, you'll notice like Trigo here doesn't have a number there. What does that mean? That means that NASS did not publish a yield. So if you see a 0 there with a $ from it, that means NASS did publish a yield and there's no payment, okay? Now, at this point, probably in about another probably closer to 60 days, RMA will release their county yield that they use for the the supplemental coverage program. So they will release a county yield number. When we get that county yield number, if we don't have a NASS county yield, we'll substitute in the crop insurance county yield number and re-estimate those payments. So this payment estimate is going to get better 60 days from now. So you'll have a better number to work with as far as your cash flow planning is for the payment that would occur in roughly October. Now, if they've got a 0 there, now I'm anticipating most of these are going to be 0 too. It's just we don't have a county yield number to put in. Now, in case of corn, we don't have any NASS yields at this point. So what this shows is like in, what is that? Ellis County, you need a yield that's 25% below your 5-year Olympic average yield to trigger a payment. So not likely you're going to get one here. Some of these other counties need a yield that's 12% higher than their Olympic average yield to get a payment. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get one. It just means the odds are against it, but we'll have a much better number and that comes out in what, 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks. It's somewhere in the middle of February. NASS will release their corn yields and their soybean yields. We will then read those numbers in from that data file and re-estimate the payments for corn and soybeans. So in about 2 weeks, we will have a solid number for counties that have a NASS yield. And that gets more complicated because you see you've got them split between irrigated and non-irrigated. Why am I talking about Ringo County, Iowa? Very simply, southern part of this state did not get paid. When you look out there in year 2018-19, if you get a yield that's equal to your 5-year Olympic average yield, you are going to need a national average price below 318 to trigger a payment. Did you take ARC on corn, Eric? Well, yeah, you're going to need a very low price if the yield is average. So for all practical purposes, by 2018, there's very little protection left in the commodity program. If you don't have crop insurance, you really don't have any coverage at all. So 318, very low number. We're well above that. Where we at right now, we're at 340 on this year's crop. Hopefully the price don't get any worse. Anyway, nonetheless, you look down here at Ringo County. Why am I looking at Ringo County? That's because those folks in Iowa, they go both ways. That's not what you think it is, Eric. They go both ways politically, okay? Yeah, one time they'll vote Democrat, next time they'll vote Republican. So everybody's running for president, and you have the caucus, you know. Everybody running for president, they're going to come out and they're going to spend time in Iowa. And they worry about what goes on in Iowa. Do they care what happens in Kansas? No. They haven't voted. Kansas has not voted for a Democrat since Lyndon Johnson in 1964. Same thing with Illinois. They haven't either, except the other extreme. They haven't voted for Republican since Abe Lincoln was running, I think. Nonetheless, these are the prices. I've gone through the numbers here. You can check them. Basically, these numbers are final. The 335 is an estimate. I've actually raised that to 340, so it'll change it a little bit. But as long as it's below 370, it's still solid. And I'm estimating 370 here in 17. And in 18, it's not going to make any difference because you're always 1 year behind on the guarantee. We do a 5-year Olympic average, and then we do 86% of that, and then that's times the average, the Olympic average yield. But look, that number is going down. So if you're in a county where the county yield is going down and you got the price going down too, your revenue guarantee is really falling out of bed at that point. I've got the numbers for the other crops. These are the current estimates. We haven't updated this chart right here. That's no longer 35 cents. It's dropped down to 30 cents. Over here at this point, we're estimating nothing. They got 9 cents on PLC in 2015 and 0 in 14. So small payment here, but this is getting to be a sizable payment. The ones that are big is wheat. Look here, 170 range, somewhere around there, and grain sorghum, 114. So those are going to be very large payments. The thing that's going on in Iowa with this particular county is you'll notice they got a big yield in 09, and then they got yields that are at the minimum, which is 70% of the T yield, 93 bushels in this county. And then this yield here is low. So you've got 3 low yields, and a fourth one that isn't great, 3 low yields out of 5. What does that do to a 5-year Olympic average yield? Well, that means when you throw out the high and low, you only got 3 yields you're averaging, and 2 of them are bad. So if your county has 3 out of the 5 years are bad or below average, you're going to have a below average yield number to plug into that revenue guarantee. And as a result, the guarantee under ARC is not very good. Did we have that in our handout material when we did Farm Bill meetings? Yes, we did. Do I think anybody understood it? No, I really don't. We went over that, but that was pretty, unless you were looking at a specific county, I'm afraid we did lose people there. So if you had 3 out of 5 years that are bad, you started out with a really bad guarantee to start with. Anyway, how could you fix this? One way to fix it would be to replace that 5-year Olympic average yield to give you the higher of the 5-year Olympic average yield, or the long run, not the Olympic average, but the long run yield for that county. In this county, it's 133. They got 93 as the floor. That'd make the floor at 133. That would cost more money, but it would change the payout structure dramatically under ARC if you had some kind of a realistic long-run average yield. These are the 2014-15 payments. Again, these are on the website. These are the combined payments. As you can see, a lot of counties did get payments over the first 2 years, total of about $50 in a lot of cases. These are the corn payments, and the 2014, these are the combined payments for the first 2 years. Anyway, if farmers had a do-over, most of you would flip and take PLC on your wheat and sorghum. Now, quite a few people went into sorghum under PLC, but they didn't get a payment the first year, and we knew you weren't going to get a payment the first year on sorghum. But even so, still quite a few people took PLC on sorghum, and the last 4 years are definitely going to pay more than whatever you gave up the first year. Corn, probably you're going to end up, most farms are going to end up, or a lot of farms are going to end up more with ARC as far as corn is concerned. Soybeans, definitely ARC would be the pick. For wheat, with the benefit of hindsight and price below $4, you obviously would go to PLC. The thing is, when farmers were picking ARC, were they concerned about big yields? Just like Eric thinks the price never goes up, we don't think about 80 bushel wheat either, do we? And there's where we got surprised. Got this big wheat crop and the price went in the tank. The market year average price also does not account for basis. Your basis get a little wide, did it? Part of that is storage, and part of it's non-convergence in the futures and the cash. I want to leave you with two things. Number one, Eric, you'll love this. You always were a big fan of the board, and Bill Tierney, if you remember him. Yes, I do. Yeah, well, two things. I'm going to straighten him out now. Two things. Number one, the market is not trading wheat. Not trading wheat. It's trading the value of a warehouse receipt. That's what it's actually trading. And if you read the contract, you'll discover that. Most of academia has apparently not read the contract because they're still teaching it, K-State too, that you could either buy your contract back if you sell the board, or you could deliver 5,000 bushels. You cannot deliver 5,000 bushels because bushels are not being delivered. What's being delivered is a warehouse receipt, and as a farmer, you cannot produce the warehouse receipt. The only people who can produce the warehouse receipt, you guessed it, Eric, your favorite target group. I've been around you long enough. It's the multinationals. It's the 7 or 8 companies. There are no co-ops who can deliver on a hard red winter wheat contract. There are co-ops that can deliver on a spring contract, but not a hard red winter wheat contract. So we are not trading wheat. It's as simple as that. We're trading the value of this warehouse receipt. And all of this has caused this non-convergence in cash and futures, and that's where we get the closing down of the spreads, and that's when you're able to transfer risk through a hedge. We are meeting in, I don't know, a week or so down in Great Bend, have an all-day RAM workshop, and we're going to deal with that. I see you. We're going to get done. Yeah, we're done. We're done. I don't have an answer to that. That's a darn good question. Anybody else have any idea what percent went under loan? I don't know. I don't know. I worry about when it comes out of loan, what are people going to do with it? They're going to put it back on the market. We still got to move this. If you still drive around, there's still a lot of weed out there. And then you got this compounding problem that we're not getting the convergence between futures and cash, and the hedge isn't working at the elevators. You're thinking, well, I don't deal with that. Yeah, you do. The elevators are hedging the wheat, and it comes back to you one way or another. Have anybody went out and got a forward contract offer? You'll notice it's very wide. What are they doing? They're bidding their basis in, plus they're bidding in that non-convergence. Do I think anything's going to get fixed? No, I don't. But I think you need to understand what you're up against. You also should never go into a futures contract thinking you have the leverage of delivery, because you don't. That really changes the whole psychology of how you sell things. And all that we're going to cover in much greater detail in Great Bend. So if you're really interested in understanding how the market works, we'd be glad to have you there. Yes, sir.
Are you planning to be folks to offer testimony at the Farm Bill hearing?
I have presented this non-convergence, this market failure in the futures market, and this carries over to crop insurance because your price for crop insurance is determined by that, and when the price of futures doesn't come down, your payments are not as big as they otherwise would have been the case. So it just runs through the whole system. To answer your question, I don't have to be asked. I give it to them anyway, whether they want it or not. I've also been in contact with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I've got grain traders from all over the country who have been writing me notes. Most of them have been pretty civil. I have a couple of them ticked at me. But that's okay. I mean, this is what it is, and farmers need to understand you have no right to make delivery. As one trader said, sort of off the record, what the hell, farmers think they got a right to be in this market? I thought we were producing wheat myself, but you know, that's kind of the attitude. So do I think the CME is going to make trade? They're getting a lot of pushback on how to fix it. There's several ways to fix it, and they all have side effects. Again, when I have the whole day with you in Great Bend, we will cover all of that. If you want to know where you get these numbers at and where you can see what your exact payments are, it's on agmanager.info. The boss back there spent a ton of the faculty's salaries on building this website. It is not cheap to hire programmers. If I told you what we spent, I'll just tell you, it's over 100 grand. And you're thinking, wow. Well, when you start paying programmers, you discover it gets expensive quickly. But we were really proud of our new website. We'd like you to use it. And among other things, all those government payments that we're showing, those are all out there in those maps. And I update those prices that I showed you. They're updated every month. If you're not on our email address and would like to be, please leave us your email address on this yellow sheet that's going around, and we'd be glad to add you to it. Okay?